Welcome to the Hunter's Campfire. G'day, my name is Mark van den Bogart, hunter, fisherman, writer and storyteller. With me is Ian Hurley, technologist, hunter, hunting mentor and proud father. Together we want to help you get hunting. Our focus is helping you make the most of public land hunting right here in Australia, even if you don't live in a state where it's offered. This podcast series is all about helping you get started, helping you build your knowledge and your confidence so you can get out there and live your own hunting adventures. Now, let's get started. Well, good evening all. Tonight we have with us Tim Blackwell from South Australia, ADA clubman, deer hunter, show me hunter, hunted in Africa too. I'm not sure what he shot in Africa. Hunted something in Africa, and taxidermist, and of course Ian and myself. So welcome on board, Tim.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, good to be with you.
So tonight, what we'd like to do is delve inside your vast experience and just get an idea of the kind of hunting you've done, and also particularly the hunting you've done in Africa, because I think a lot of people will find that pretty interesting, and also, you know, the kind of spearing off into taxidermy and how you got there and where you've taken that. So to get the ball rolling, why don't you give us a rundown of you know, your hunting, I suppose, life and how you got started and where it's taken you.
Yeah, cool. No worries. So yeah, like most of us, I guess, I started with Dad. Dad was never a big hunter, but he hunted small game, and my mum's family was from up in the Flinders country in the mid-north of SA, and had land, and Dad would go when I was young and hunt rabbits and foxes and whatever with them, and then when I was only young, we moved down to Narracourt in the southeast of SA, and yeah, he continued hunting down there, and yeah, I went out and shot my first rabbits and foxes and stuff with Dad with a 22, and that was hunting for Dad, you know. Foxes was about as good as it got, sort of thing, and yeah, for me it was sort of, I just wanted more and bigger and better, and yeah, sort of as soon as I was old enough to drive and get a gun license, you know, I was off with my mates, and then it was all about pigs and goats, you know, and you know, we'd go and do the trips to New South Wales and take the motorbikes up and stay in the shearers' huts and, you know, go and chase pigs and goats for a week at a time, and so yeah, pretty typical. I think that's probably how most of us sort of started, and then it wasn't until sort of kids came along that I, you know, had to look a bit closer to home, and at that stage didn't really realise, I think, that I'd lived in one of the best sort of deer hunting spots in Australia, and so then started deer hunting just to hunt closer to home, and yeah, it all went from there. So pretty much it.
It's a funny thing that, you know, so many people, and I'm one of them, you know, we used to travel 10 hours past deer country to go hunting pigs.
Yeah.
Literally, you know, we're going hunting, so we go up in central Queensland, we drive to Emerald to hunt pigs, you know, and past red deer country, the whole lot. No one really knew they were there, and if you knew they were there, you played it very close to your chest.
Yeah, 100%, and that was the case here. You know, I had mates that I knew hunted deer, sort of thing, but you know, I never thought it was a possibility, really, I suppose. And then, once I started deer hunting seriously, probably I don't know, 16, 17 years ago, something like that, I suppose. And then just never looked back. And then from there it's just been I just want to hunt everything. It's a terrible affliction.
Well, you're in a good country. You're in a good country for it, and I agree with this. Driving past, however many, you know, thousands of kilometres of land that, you know, has got reasonable game on it, just to get to game somewhere else in the country or on another part of the world. I'm always, you know, I've been one of those hunters that's always looking for the next overseas trip. You know, where we're going to go, who's coming with me this time. You know, that's going to fill the chopper up and you know, help me carve up the bill. And and it was only during this COVID period that, you know, I've listened to a lot more podcasts and a bit more content, there is so much in this country that no other country's got a patch. I mean, Africa's got some pretty amazing stuff, but buff up north and the various deer species that we've got, and then there's donkeys and camels and all sorts of stuff that you can go chase. So I think I've got a newfound passion for traveling this country to find the species that I want to chase. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, no, for sure, mate. There's a long list here, and I think a lot of Aussie hunters are sort of glass half empty type blokes because we've traditionally a lot of Australians only sort of hunt for pest control. There's that attitude that unless you're killing a pest, you shouldn't be hunting, sort of thing. But I think people are starting to realise, we have got it pretty good here, and there's not a lot of really restrictions and bag limits and all that sort of stuff for a lot of species in a lot of places. So. And there's a lot to chase. It's a big country, and like you, I just love going to different places and seeing country that if it wasn't for hunting, you'd never see that country. So
100%. Well, before we move on to some of the really interesting stuff that you've done in your hunting life, we haven't covered South Australia yet on our podcast. We've talked about Victoria and New South Wales, and we've been putting this podcast together to give Queenslanders who don't have public land access an understanding of what they can and can't do and where they can go. Give us a rundown on SA. What's it got to offer, and what licenses and permits and things do you need to get to go down and chase your critters around?
SA is a bit of a unique sort of thing in that it's private property only hunting down here. So it's basically private land with written access is the only way really you can hunt down here. And then there is a basic hunting permit which you get through one of the government departments. I think it's only $25 a year or something like that. And by rights to even go and spotlight a rabbit, on private property, you should have a hunting permit. So anyone who hunts in SA needs a basic hunting permit. Which kind of is a bit of a head scratcher for me because if you're hunting on your own private property or with a landowner or something like that, I don't know why you need government permission to do it, but it's a strange anomaly. But that's the rules here, and unfortunately, we do have some big areas of public land that do have deer and other game and that in them, but it's a bit of a political football trying to get access to them. A lot like probably what you're going through in Queensland. I think hunters and the public could play a big role in helping control introduced species in those parks and that sort of stuff. And at the moment, the SA government sends over choppers every year and shoots thousands of deer. And I think it just could be revenue positive instead of costing us taxpayers a fortune. But that's a massive kettle of fish. There are people fighting the good fight, and I've been involved in a bit myself through ADA at a state level in the past. In Adelaide for a lot of meetings and that sort of stuff. Meeting with government bureaucrats and whatever, trying to pave the way. And we have had some successes. We've had some control programs in public land here in SA that have been quite successful, but it's a slowly sort of approach, So we're hopeful that if we keep proving that we can do it and we can do it safely and get good results, that eventually it'll pave the way for all hunters. So, but time will tell.
There was, if I remember correctly, there's been quite a long goat cull program in the Flinders Ranges, hasn't there?
Yeah, there has. Predominantly done through SSAA, from what I understand. Yeah. And I think that's been quite long running. And they have done some deer culls as well. ADA have done some deer culls as well in parks. And had some access as well to ground hunting parks and that sort of stuff. But and like I said, we're actively negotiating for more. ADA has like SSAA, we have a memorandum of understanding with the state government here to work together on game management and pest control and that sort of stuff. So look, fingers crossed that something can happen in the future. But it's a tough political football.
With that too, by the way, is duck hunting also private only, or is there public access to duck hunting?
Sort of duck hunting, yeah. I'm not a duck hunter at all. I generally don't sort of hunt the shotguns at all, but yeah, that's the one. Duck, and I'm not sure about quail. We still do have a quail season. I don't know if that's just private or not. It's outside of my area of knowledge, but yeah, definitely is a duck season that has some game reserves. Yeah.
Yeah, I've spoken to someone who hunted there. I could never quite understand if they were hunting on public or private, but I know they have a duck season, and I think there's some pheasant shooting down there too, but I think that's purely private.
It is, yeah, and they're bred birds, yeah, the pheasant hunting down here. So, yeah,
and what,
good fun. But yeah.
What breed of deer you got down in SA?
Look, it's predominantly fallow. That's like 90+% of our deer would be fallow, and they've been there, well over 100 years. Same with the red deer. There's red deer down here as well that have been here a long time. They're predominantly the two, and then you do get small pockets of chill, rusa, the odd samba, but they're predominantly sort of, just small pockets or escapees, that sort of stuff. But but the vast majority is fallow boy reds. Yeah.
Dare I say it, that you seem more restricted than Queensland, having to get a hunting permit as well as not having that access. Well, there you go. I learned something tonight. I thought we were the poor cousins up north.
No, look, SA could definitely be better. That's for sure. And like everywhere, if you don't know people, it's pretty tough to get onto good private land. Luckily growing up in a country area, I sort of, know enough people and that sort of thing that I'm pretty fortunate. But for someone new getting into it, it's pretty hard work. Yeah.
So again, what's the big private hunting ground down there in South Australia? Is it Water Valley?
Yeah, Water Valley Station. Yep.
It is Water Valley. That's it. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's really the central point for a lot of private land hunting, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Look, Water Valley's a massive private property. Don't quote me, but a couple of 100,000 acres behind game fence. And it is just a massive, massive area. Like it's, not my style really as far as hunting goes, but I've been in there and it's a real eye opener. Good numbers of deer, and you get in there in the rut, it really is an eye opener. And for people that don't have access or to go and access different species, like I think they've got 5 species of deer in there. It's pretty exciting hunting, and it's not super expensive from what I understand. And there's a number of guides that operate out of there. There's guides from every state will come and base themselves at Water Valley for months at a time, some of them. And there's a couple of full-time ones, I think, that sort of live there year-round. But, definitely good opportunity for people who don't have access, and some good hunting in there, and still sort of challenging, like it's a big enough area that, you're not you're not in a pen, that's for sure. But for those people that are interested, definitely a good opportunity.
Yeah, and there's some big reds in there too, from what I've seen.
Yeah, there are. And look, and there's big free range reds in SA too. Actually this year the quality of reds I've got in my shed that have come in from clients is out of this world. It's been a really good year. So some very handy reds.
So moving a bit out of South Australia, we know that you've hunted a little bit in Victoria. So give us a rundown of what that's like for you hunting in Victoria.
Well, secret spots welcome.
No, well, look, it's a small state, but it's not that small.
No, look, I'm far from an expert. You're not going to get any good spots in Victoria if you follow me. So, no, look, Victoria to me is probably more about catching up with mates over there, which I don't do enough of, and I haven't hunted over there as much as I would have liked. But yeah, I've done a few Samba trips now over the years, and like I said, a lot of it's to go and catch up with a good mate or two and just spend a bit of time in the bush. And or one mate over there who's a stalker, and then another mate who runs a hound crew up out of Dargo. And so I've been and sort of done both. And then a lot of the guys from the southeast here will go and do sort of backpack hunting in behind the gates, and I've done a little bit of that as well. So I'm certainly not a really experienced Samba hunter, but I've sort of dabbled in each style, and it's certainly sort of beautiful country to go and spend a bit of time in, and something I do need to do more of, but I kept getting dragged overseas and elsewhere, and just there's only so many weeks in the year.
Been tough by the sounds of it.
I haven't ever hunted. Well, I have hunted with dogs, but not like that. Certainly the hound hunting looks like a very social, communal type of activity. It looks like a real event rather than just a hunt. That's for sure.
Absolutely, mate. It's and look, I go more for that side of it than the hunting. To be honest, it's such a good team atmosphere, and they're also passionate about their dogs, and what it's to them. It's all about being in the bush and watching their dogs work, and if they harvest a deer at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's a hind or a stag or whatever it is. It's they're pretty happy, and the whole team's there to help out, and it really is a great team atmosphere. I go up there for a week, and blokes I don't know are feeding me and treating me like family, and sitting around the fire at night, and the stories that come out you can imagine, and it really is. It's a good social time for sure.
Yeah, it looks really. I suppose it's almost like hunting's often a very individual activity, so the hunting looks wholly different in the approach, and the fact that the meal and the camp and all that is a big part of it, rather than just that the actual activity of hunting itself. It seems very much more of a communal activity, and I suppose that's why you get those kind of lifelong friends for it, because there's so much interaction.
Yeah, that's right. Those guys that's all they do is hunt Samba over hounds. They're not interested in hunting anything else anywhere. That's life, and it's funny, you go overseas and down in the East Cape of South Africa, there's guys that hunt bushbuck over hounds, and they're as passionate as our Samba guys. And some of them, that's all they hunt is bushbuck over hounds. And it's the similarities are unbelievable. But it's all about teamwork and working with the dogs, and so two completely different scenarios, but so similar at the same time. So
it is. It's obviously a very Europe. It's got some really strong European connections, though. In terms of Australia, you're in Australia hunting basically an Asiatic deer over hounds, and then I suppose in Africa you're hunting an African species over hounds, and I suppose it's very similar to what you see again, and I've only ever seen it on video, like in the States where they're hunting predators or bears, or even the large cats with the hounds. So it's
the mountain lions,
hound activity. Yeah, well, I would certainly like to have, even if I was just there, I'd like to be a part of that one. It looks like a really, really, communal activity, and that's always been a big part of hunting for me. Or it didn't start that way, but it's certainly become more and more important, that connectivity. It was interesting before you were talking about, family makes you kind of reassess your ability to travel. So I mean, with two young boys, I think it was 2018 when I last said goodbye for 10 days, and that was the last. That was it. And so I completely understand. You almost have to compress your journey time so you can spend more time actually hunting and less time traveling. And I was lucky
Yep.
through the pandemic to actually get a block only 90 minutes from home. So that's been my sanity check. But it's very true, that idea that, you know, when you don't have that kind of commitment, you go, yeah, see ya, I'll see you when I come back, and off you go.
Yeah.
It is really something I've thought about a lot too.
Yeah, no, it definitely changed my hunting. It actually changed it for the better because, you know, that got me involved in deer hunting, and you know, I don't know, you know, I probably would have fallen into it eventually, but I probably wouldn't have the experience I got now. But yeah, like for me, like I'm down in Mount Gambier now. It's where I'm based, and you know, for me, it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours drive to get into really good deer country. But it's far enough that, you know, you can just do an overnighter, or, you know, for us, we do a lot of 2, maybe 3 night hunts sort of thing throughout the year. During the rut, we'll try and go for, you know, a longer sort of 5 or 6 day hunt if you can. But yeah, predominantly 2 night hunt would be what we do, and yeah, it's much easier to do that sort of with younger kids, obviously, than just to piss off for a week at a time. And yeah, it's a bit selfish, but for me, it's sort of, I've almost gone full circle now. You know, my girls are, you know, the oldest one's at their boyfriend's place tonight, and the youngest one's nearly 17. So it's sort of, yeah, I've sort of got that freedom back again. And, you know, I'm pretty lucky to have a wife that generally, you know, any stupid harebrained scheme I come up with, she just says, yeah, go do it. So I'm very lucky in that regard. Yeah, she very rarely calls me an idiot and says no. So yeah, generally she's pretty encouraging, which is certainly helps.
Well, I know at the moment if I leave here at 3 a.m, I can be back for school pickup.
That's hardcore.
That's it. I know that. And the reason I know that is I'm going to do it again on Friday coming up. But that's it. If I leave here at 3 a.m, I'll be with the coffee stop on the way. I'll be there at 4:45. The light will just be coming up, and I'll be in the paddock. And if I do well, I'll be back here for school pick. Oh, if I do well or not, I'll be back for school pickup. So,
yep,
compress it down into a day. It's a long day, and I have to sleep on the couch because no one wants me banging around the house at 3 a.m in the morning when I'm leaving. So,
yep. No, I've been there, done exactly the same, mate. The first place I really cut my teeth hunting fallow on, you know, I got on a nice little private block, and I'd go down. I'd either do exactly that, or I'd leave home at 3 a.m. and drive up there and just, you know, sneak out in the paddock and sit under a tree till it got light, or I'd drive up there later in the evening and just roll the swag in the back of the ute in the corner of the paddock, and then sort of be out hunting as the sun came up. And that's, yeah, that place there is where I shot my first sort of fallow and first sort of fallow buck in a couple of days, and ended up taking a good mate there, and he shot his first couple of fallow bucks there as well. And yeah, that's sort of really where I cut my teeth doing exactly what you just said, you know, like day trips, or at the very most, you know, an overnighter, but not even really an overnighter, just a long day hunt.
Well, I literally just bought a new one-man tent for the summer because you know, I'm getting up at 2:30 to try and beat the light, and I'm just thinking, no, I'm just going to go up the night before.
Yeah.
Sleep in the paddock and be ready to go. So the trouble with you know, while sunrise might be 5 a.m, you're getting light at 4:30. So I can't beat it after a while.
Yeah, that's right. No, and you know, sometimes you got to walk, you know, an hour to be where you want to be when that sun does come up. So, and yeah, that to me, that's always the best part of the day. You know, I've always preferred morning hunting to afternoon hunting. So, yeah, do what you got to do to get out there, however you can do it, pretty much.
So, mate, how did you morph from that to taxidermy? Because I mean, most of us have a crack at you know skull mounting something or doing a presentation, but you kind of took it up a couple of notches. So how'd you? I mean, Ben's got some behind him. I've got some here on the wall, but you kind of went, yeah, that's not good enough, and you kicked it up a few levels.
Unfortunately, I haven't got one on the wall because my trophy room's currently demolished, and I've got a concrete slab down for the new trophy room, and I've got timber frames, and that's it. So the former lounge room next to me is gutted of furniture, and the whole floor is covered in. I think there's nearly 30 shoulder mounts laying on the floor in there. So that's my trophy room at the moment. It's not very impressive, but so no, I sort of started, well, not by accident, but like you, I've always done a few skull mounts and shield mounts, and played around tanning a couple of skins early on, and but the main thing for me was there's no taxidermists around here, and I would drive to Melbourne or over to Mansfield, over to Pete Anthony when he was doing taxidermy over there, or a couple of guys down in Melbourne, or old Bill Barry down there, and those guys sort of did my first mounts many years ago, but for me, it's a 5-hour drive to drop it off, and then another 5-hour drive to go pick it up, and anyway, I was always interested. So many years ago, I shot a fox one night out spotlighting, and I thought, a fox would be a pretty easy way to start taxidermy. And little did I know how wrong that was. To this day, I still hate doing foxes.
There's some pretty mongrel-looking fox memes of taxidermy failures out there.
They're not easy to mount well, that's for sure. Anyway, I mounted this mangy-looking little vixen, and I remember sort of finishing that, and I was moderately happy with it, but I remember thinking, these taxidermists earn every cent they get. I'm never doing that again. And for the next 2 years, I don't think I even thought about taxidermy. But then I shot a little 10-point red stag one year, and caped it out just for a spare cape, to be honest. And then it wasn't until I got home and I thought, no, bugger it, I'm going to have a go at mounting this red, and I stuffed a fair bit of it up, but there was enough sort of half reasonable bits about it that I thought, that's not too bad. And then I had a couple of good mates that were generous enough to give me some heads that they had, and just to get practice doing other species and that sort of thing. And so I started doing a few for mates, and then it just grew from there. And next thing I was doing 20 heads a year, then 50 heads a year, then 70, 80. Now it's well over 100 heads a year. So it's just the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years especially has just gone through the roof. So it's almost the point where it's a full-time thing just about now. It's a bit crazy, but look, I'm a shift worker in the timber industry down here, and I have been for I think 22 years now, and I work 4 days on, 4 days off. I've got that bit of time to either go hunting or be in the shed sort of working, but I'm at the point now where I'm sort of I'm 4 days on at work and I'm 4 days on in my shed, so it's just feel like I'm always working 8 days a week, but I do enjoy it and still love it, and the animals are getting bigger and badder and more exotic, and getting stuff from all over the world, and sending stuff, around the place as well. So it's been good.
What's the business called, Tim?
I went right out on a limb, mate, and just called it Tim Blackwell Taxidermy.
Good.
I'm an imaginative sort of bloke, but
do you put pictures of your work up on socials?
For sure, mate. Yeah, I'm on Facebook mainly under the same name, and then I am on Instagram as well. I don't do as much on Instagram. I'm a bit of a newbie really, but so I do. Facebook's been really good. It's probably more main sort of marketing tool, and certainly get a lot of traffic there, and has been good for business, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, you talk about all of the bad things that social media has brought into our lives, but promoting work, for the small businessman that's got a niche like what you're talking about is, it's a bloody good tool.
Oh, 100%, mate. It's by far, my biggest sort of marketing and that sort of stuff, and got a pretty good community on there, and surprisingly haven't had too much hate mail or flack or anything like that. So it's all been pretty positive, and no, it has worked well for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, great. Well, I found you. That wasn't hard. So I'll take a good look at that. I've taken, a few animals over my hunting life, and I've never even really thought hard about getting a shoulder mount done or any kind of mount done other than, just doing a Euro, just because it's easy, something that you can do yourself. And, there's a reasonable extra cost to get someone to do a good job of a shoulder mount. And whilst you probably, want to do that for a good quality animal that you've taken, it's a big step to be, going from, public land free range hunting where you haven't really paid much more than the travel cost to get out there to adding that sort of load on top of it. But, there's an appeal, and it's difficult to find the right taxidermist because you'll find good and bad reviews about everybody. And,
for sure.
if you're going to give your pride and joy that you've, and all of those memories to somebody's hands, I don't even know how you go about selecting somebody. It's got to be a difficult task, but doing 100 a year, I reckon someone's found a niche.
Yeah.
And you're right. I'll just add, it's you're 100% right what you say. It's an art form. Everybody's interpretation of an animal is slightly different. We always work to live reference. Nothing beats live reference, but everyone's interpretation is slightly different. And any other sort of taxidermist could tell you, we can pretty much pick each other's work virtually now. You can look at them out and go, yeah, well, Joe Bloggs did that one, and most of the time you can pick it, and you get to pick forms and this sort of stuff, and like some of us are good at certain things. There's some things I'm better at than others, and other taxidermists, they all have their specialties exactly like you say, and so it's important to do that bit of research and find the right taxidermist for the mount you want to do. Whoever that may be, and I'll be honest, like I mentioned foxes earlier, like I don't like doing foxes. I'm not great at them, so I'm happy to refer them to someone else that is good at them, So whereas I'd rather do, the deer and big game that I'm sort of good at and spend my time doing what I'm good at and let someone else do what they're good at. So
yeah, I was gonna ask if there was something you'd prefer not to do, but potentially you're too polite to turn away. What would it be? It sounds like one of those bug-eyed foxes with gnarly teeth. That's the wrong choice for you. But if you were doing big game like deer and various other things, is there a particular part of doing a shoulder mount or a common mount that you do that you don't enjoy? Like, is there a really difficult part to the job that not enjoying is the wrong term, but can become a bit tedious, I guess?
Look, probably every little part of it over a while, can get a little tedious. It's funny. I'm a bit like I always tend to put aside doing the finished final detail work, not because it's tedious, but I'm really good at getting a heap of stuff mounted, and then they generally, once they're mounted, they take about a month to dry before we can finish them. And I'll generally end up with this. I'll just keep mounting stuff and end up with this wall full of stuff that I've got to finish. That's probably my downfall. But I look, the skinning and turning and salting and all that, definitely by the end of the rut, that starts to wear a bit thin. And I think every taxidermist will be there, especially down here, being fallow red deer country, as you can imagine, like probably half of my year's work comes in 6 weeks, like March, April is just ballistic. I've got deer coming in virtually 7 days a week. Some days you'll have 4 deer come in and they all need caping, so it's the rest of the year I don't cape that many deer, but during the rut it's just crazy, so
people are bringing them in not live. People are bringing them in whole for you.
I have had a couple of whole ones, but no, generally a lot of them will cape up to the head and just lop the head off with the cape. Bring them in and we've just got a face cape, turn the ears, lips, nose, salt it down, boiling skull caps, just all that work. Definitely by the end of April, I'm pretty much over that. And the downside of that is because you're spending so much of your time doing that, you're not actually getting anything mounted. So Whereas this time is great. You know, I can just be in the shed flat out, getting stuff mounted and really catching up because there's not much coming in. So summer's my catch-up time, and then I know come sort of February, March, it's going to start pouring in again, and it's the silly season back again. So,
but for the hunter, would you have it any other way? I mean, would you prefer to get the animal coming in that state for you to deal with properly than, you know, Joe Blow hunter to have a hack and try and get it off for you to repair? Like, it might get tedious,
you're 100%
but
right.
yeah.
That's a good point, mate. So, you know, like, because it is an investment, and it's not just an investment in coin, but it's an investment, you know, it's a personal investment. You shoot something that you want to get, you know, you think, I want this, you know, I want this on my wall for the rest of my life. I want to look at this thing, I want to remember this thing. So one of the things that we really like to do on the podcast is really give people advice about what to do. And let's ask that question. If I've hit a deer that I want to get, you know, I think this is the deer I want on my wall. What do you want to see? What makes you smile than rather go, oh God, here we go.
More maggots.
What do you want to see from me?
Oh, look, world, mate. I'd love to see every hunter do their practice, go out in the field with the right gear. You know, have a Havalon scalpel knife and a good sharp skinning knife, and you know, a pair of ear pliers for turning ears and all that sort of stuff. And you know, I do get a reasonable handful of hunters that are experienced enough that they're good at caping. They can fully turn a salted cape. It comes in with no meat and fat on it. And you know, basically they'll just come in and go, here's my antlers, here's my dry salted cape, and you know, it's a matter of just putting a tag in it and putting it on the pile, sort of thing. And that's easy, but you know, I'm realistic enough to know that not everyone knows how to do that, and you know, there's a lot of newer hunters out there and that sort of stuff. So I'm always happy to spend time with guys, you know, to run them through, show them how to face cape an animal and that sort of stuff. And you know, I end up doing a couple of demonstrations generally with ADA every year, you know, showing how to face cape and all that sort of stuff, and trying to educate people. Because as you say, you know, if a guy tries to do it himself, you know, it might have saved me half an hour from turning ears and lips, but I end up spending an extra 2 hours sewing holes up in it. So yeah. But no, look, to answer your question properly, the main thing is, like, the basic bodily cuts aren't too bad, you know, to cut around behind, make sure you leave enough cape. You know, we always talk about don't cut your cape short. You know, we can always cut it off. You can't add it back on. So an animal like a fallow, you know, go right back to halfway if you want to. That cut up the back of the neck, make it nice and straight. You know, you see a lot of guys will take a blunt knife and hack their way up the back of the neck, and, you know, we've got to try and sew that up. So make your cuts nice and clean, use a sharp scalpel or whatever. Skin it off.
That's an important one, isn't it? Go up the back of the neck, not up the front of the belly. Because you can hide that, can't you? In the hair is
I suppose so. It's up.
Well, most of us cut up the belly. That's what you do when you're just field dressing something out. It's a different cut. When you want to keep it.
100%. So the first step really is do your research. Like, as you say, you know, research cuts. You know, there's a couple of booklets out there, and there is a bit of stuff online now about how to cape a deer and that sort of stuff. And you know, it doesn't have to be a trophy buck. You know, you can cape a spiker or you can cape a doe or whatever for a bit of practice, even if it's just a meat animal. So, you know, if you are thinking of getting something mounted, definitely take the time, do a bit of practice, and have the right tools in the field. You know, have a couple of sharp knives, and you know, it's not rocket science, but it just takes a bit of practice and know-how. And but the main thing is, I always tell people, treat it like a piece of meat that you're going to eat. So keep it as clean as you can, keep it cool, you know, because it is what wrecks capes and causes hair slip is the same bacteria that sends your meat off, right? So keep it cool, you know. If you've got to put it in your esky and pack it in ice, pack it in ice. If you've got angle fridge, put it in the angle fridge, keep it cool. If you're not going to turn it, salt it. You know, a lot of guys will freeze capes, which is fine. But the main thing is, you know, don't leave it sitting in the sun. Don't, you know, you see guys will go back to camp, get on the beers, and then decide sometime mid-morning, I might go and cape that deer, and by then it's it's already too late. So deal with it as soon as you can, get it cool, make it your number one priority, pretty much.
Yeah. Look, I've started carrying it, Havilon, just for that reason. I haven't used it, but I thought, one day I might just happen to think, hang on, I want this one. Haven't got there yet, but I suppose it's wishful. It was a wishful thinking purchase on my part,
Yeah, I'm
Mate,
likely to be the guy that slips the knife up the back of its neck and lops its head off and drops the whole thing off, still intact.
Look, and that's fine.
I've seen that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The only downside with that is it limits your time. You pretty much got to get out of the bush to get it back to your taxidermist.
Yeah.
And like if you're sambar hunting in your 5 hours from the car and you camped or whatever, it's good to know how to turn them and salt them, and then you can spend the rest of your time in camp or whatever instead of having to cut your trip short. But yeah, look, definitely, you have a lot come in like that every year that I end up face caping, and that's fine. So part of the
I remember shooting on one of the blocks, the ADA blocks up in Brisbane Valley, and one of the guys got a deer he wanted caped, and literally threw the whole animal on the back of the truck and headed to Kilcoy at a fast rate of knots.
At the bottom of a very gnarly gully in New Zealand, a long way from anywhere, when we shot a nice red stag, and one of the guys said to me, I said, "Are we going to mount this one?" And I'm like, "Oh, fuck, no way. How am I going to get that up the hill?" It was a good 18 hours to get back to camp from where we were. So there was no hope for him, unfortunately. But anyway, I hear you. And they are good tips. It's important for people to know. And another bit of kit to go in the bag, I guess, Mark, isn't it, really, for people? But I'd love to get a demo. Like I went to one of the ADA hunter education weekends at one point, and they had someone come and do a taxidermy presentation on how to do the full face mount caping and all that sort of stuff. But not one thing in that demonstration I've remembered, because it wasn't hands on. It's very difficult to watch and not get the experience. Now we as a branch quite often we'll run a mentor weekend, and we'll knock over 10 fallow deer, and then everyone gets to dress out a side. So you got 20 people being able to dress out a side of that under instruction from a good quality butcher. And the hands-on is what makes you remember all of that. Now, it makes me think that if we're going to knock over 10 deer, then maybe we should bring in a taxidermist that can then take you through the whole face cape process as well, and not just the butchery, because then that'll stick. At least some of it will stick by doing that.
Yeah, look, you're dead right. You're going to learn 10 times more by getting a knife in your hands and doing it yourself. That's definitely how I learn best. Just have a crack.
I like the idea of just practicing on a meat animal. I think that's a great idea. You once you got the hind quarters off and the back straps out, just practice. I mean, why not?
That's right.
That sounds like very, very reasonable advice. Get out there and just have a practice at it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, what's the worst can happen? You
that's right. You don't get it right, but you'll learn. Oh, okay, don't do that next time, and things like that. Because what's it like? We're talking about deer, but what about things like pigs? Because I would assume that they would be a very different animal to cape out like that.
Yeah, pigs. Think about caping a BFG off your four-wheel drive. It's pretty much what it's like caping a pig. And buffalo. I just did this buff trip out in Arnhem Land a month ago, and I think we had a big group out there. We had I think 6 of us out there, and we rolled I think 6 buffalo bulls and 2 scrub bulls, and we caped a lot. And and in mid-September, it's bloody hot, and we a few times we were good few k's from the car, and it's hard work caping out one of those guys. You know, the back of the necks on those bulls are, you know, 1.25 inches thick, and some pretty serious weight to carry out as well.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, that's serious. But it makes it look pretty good when you come home and get back into a fallow deer.
You know, that'd test out a good knife, coping out something on that size in the heat. You know, because you'd want to be moving. You'd naturally want to try and move as fast as you can. So.
Yeah, for sure. No, look, I'm lucky. The guys I was up there with, the guide we had was pretty handy. One of the better guides I've seen as far as trophy prep, and 2 guys in camp were butchers, so they're pretty handy with knives. And it was a case where everyone just sort of hooked in and had a go, and we got them done pretty quick. But yeah, you know, we had a couple of them died in rivers and 2 in the dark, and you know, it threw everything at us. But yeah, all fun and games. So
unreal.
Wow.
So
that's worth. I mean, great segue. So tell us a little bit about your hunting up in Northern Territory for buffalo and scrub bulls.
So yeah, it's sort of. I remember when I was a kid. You know, you first read those sporting shooter magazines. I can remember being in I think year 3 or 4 in primary school, and used to pinch Dad's sporting shooters and take them to school with me, and I can just remember buffalo were always just the pinnacle. You know, once you'd shot a buffalo, you might as well give up because there's nothing else to hunt. You know, and when I was a kid, that's the way I thought. So you know, I always wanted to just go and hunt buffalo. And anyway, back in 2010, I did my first NT trip, and that was organised through the late great Matt Graham, who's since passed away, unfortunately, far too young. But yeah, Matt ran Hunt Australia Safaris, which is one of the bigger outfitters in the NT at the time. And yeah, went up and had a great hunt there, and shot a really nice bull buffalo and a really nice scrub bull as well as you know, a handful of pigs and donkeys and brumbies and dingoes, and just, you know, just had a ball. That same year, actually, I went and hunted pigs back in the Territory as well, with a mate up there. You know, quad bike each, and you know, cruising the waterholes, chasing pigs, which was a good fun hunt as well, and was pretty much addicted to the NT after that. And then yeah, it was some years before I could get back, just because, you know, you end up going to Africa and New Zealand and doing all these other things, and just haven't got enough annual leave every year. And so yeah, and eventually I got back to hunt bantang, which was another one I sort of always wanted to do, but never sure if I'd get the opportunity to do it, because yeah, it's sort of not an easily accessible or cheap hunt, that's for sure. But yeah, very glad I went and did that. And then yeah, this last year just gone, sorry, this year, we were meant to be headed to Africa, but obviously with current events, we're not travelling internationally, so the idea of NT came up again, and a big group of us just said, yeah, bugger it, let's go. So caught up with Alex Jaggers from Big Country Safaris. He runs a real top shelf operation up there, and he's right out in central Arnhem, like super remote country. Like I think it was 9 or 10 hours drive out of Darwin. You know, very few roads in the area. You know, you're hunting on foot, pretty hard going, and but you know, just how it should be. Yeah, so just love it up there. It really is hunters and fishermen's paradise. Not I don't fish, but it's yeah, it is paradise for the sportsmen up there. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, what kind of gear you taking to hunt up there?
So my predominant sort of big game rifle, I've got a 4.58 Win Mag, Mark 10 Mauser, and that I hand load for everything, but I shoot 480 grain Woodleys in that, and I've shot, I think all 3 buffalo that I've shot now have all been with that. And then I've got a Seiko 375 H as well, that I've taken up there, and I hunted my bantang with that. Yeah, generally the way it is with the territory, you take your big bore rifle and everything else, just you hunt with that. So, you know, the dingoes and pigs and everything I've generally shot up there have all been with the big bores because that's just what you're carrying at the time. So it does the job.
Yeah. That's a fair 458 win. What's it? Known man killer at both ends, really, isn't it?
It's not too bad. It's my rifle's pretty light. I think it's about 9 pounds scoped, which for a 458 is a bit silly, but it's good to carry. Made to carry more than shoot. Off the bench, it's not too much fun, but yeah, it's definitely not made to bench shoot. So and I can tell you, if you're pointing it at a buffalo bull at 20 or 30 paces, you don't even feel the recoil. So,
No, you wouldn't.
Nah. So, but yeah, it's like anything. It's just practice. You know, you build up a bit of tolerance to the bigger guns, and it takes me. You know, if I haven't shot them for a year or two, it takes me. I definitely do a bit of practice first to build up a bit of tolerance to them. Again, it's not something you can just. Well, me anyway. It's not something I can just pull out of the safe and shoot a inch group with. I've got to do a bit of practice and build up tolerance. But yeah, certainly doable.
So do you fly to Darwin and then travel out that way? Does the guide meet you in Darwin, or do you make your own way out? How's that all work out for you?
Generally, yeah, most outfitters will pick you up and return you to Darwin. Yeah, that's sort of how I've done it in the past. I was pretty lucky for a number of years. My sister lived up there, so I had a nice base up there and used to visit reasonably often. But unfortunately, she's back in New South Wales these days. But yeah, it was handy having a base there. But yeah, most time we'll just lob in, spend a night at a hotel, and get a nice dinner down on the foreshore and watch the sunset and have a couple of beers, and then get picked up early the next day and head out to wherever we're hunting, and then. Yeah, it's generally sort of a week hunt, and then a night back in Darwin when we head back, and then fly back the next day. That's a typical sort of trip for us, yeah.
And that would be that part of that week be a 10-hour road trip? So it's basically 2 days travelling as well when you're up there as well.
Yeah, you're typically losing a day on either end, sort of. That's the furthest I've travelled in the territory. Other places. I think the place I hunted my first buck back in 2010 was, sort of only 4, maybe 5 hours out of Darwin, and round up to Coburg Peninsula where the Bantang are, sort of a 6-hour drive. Of course, it all depends on road conditions. If they've graded it, you can take about 2 hours off. If they haven't graded it, you can add about 2 hours on. So it's pretty dependent, but all the way, pretty interesting country to see too. Like it's certainly not boring driving up there. So
a different part of the country, isn't it?
For sure.
So how'd you leap from Northern Territory to Africa?
Well, similarly to what I said about the buffalo, I first saw kudu in hunting magazines, and like a lot of people, I think. Just wanted to hunt kudu. That was what drew me to Africa. I always wanted to go and hunt a kudu bull, and then but pretty much through a good mate of mine, Mark Roder, who I've done a lot of hunting with. Mark had already been to Africa sort of 2 or 3 times at that stage, and hunted a reasonable amount of game, and anyway, I sort of got talking to him. We're hunting pheasants down here a few times, and we'd sit in camp and start talking about Africa, and he'd bring his photo albums and start showing me, and pretty much from then on I was hooked. And so back in 2016 we did our first trip together. So Mark and his wife Lauren, and then my wife Nikki, all 4 of us went to Namibia and spent 2 weeks basically over there, and I think we had 8 full days hunting plus sort of travel on the end, and had a bit of a chance to look around the place, and just fell in love with it. Namibia is just such a beautiful place, and beautiful people, and the countryside was just fantastic. And up in the hills in Namibia, stalking free range kudu, and I shot a beautiful bull up there. Still probably my favourite hunt that I've ever done. It's one of those. Sometimes you'll have a dream of a certain animal or whatever, and it won't quite live up to what you thought it might have. But that was one that, it lived up to every part of it. The stalk was fantastic. The whole hunt was fantastic. It was exciting. And then to finally see it on the ground, and it just, the closer you get, the bigger it gets, and just everything about it was just awesome. So yeah, that was the first trip, and then so that trip, I think I went with a wish list of five species, I think, and ended up shooting 8 trophies. Just we're on a bit of a roll. And then so got home and just people told me, don't call it a once in a lifetime trip, because it's not going to be. And pretty much before I came home, we're already sort of talking about where we're going to go next. And what we generally try to do when we hunt over there is we hunt species endemic to an area. We like to try and hunt free range as much as we can. There's a lot of information out about Africa. There's a lot of misinformation as well, but not everything's behind water. But the main thing for us, I've hunted some big places over there that are game fenced, but the main thing for us is we want self-sustaining populations. So populations of game that are endemic to the area where they live. They breed there, live there, die there. You'll see some places over there where, we've all seen the footage on YouTube of a bachelor mob of buffalo bulls eating a bale of hay with blokes shooting them out of a blind or whatever. If guys want to do that, more power to them. I'm not going to knock them. If they're happy with it, that's, it's their money. Good luck to them. And those sort of opportunities are there for a reason. But, for me, if I don't see cows walking around on a property, I start scratching my head thinking, hang on, these animals aren't bred here. They're basically farm animals that were at market last week. So, you've got to pick your outfitter carefully, pick your area carefully. And like I said, we generally pick what species we want to hunt and then research, right, this is where they live, this is where they're endemic, this is where I can hunt at free range, and then pick an outfitter and go from there. So, so I've done three trips over there now, and the fourth one was meant to be 2020. Then it was meant to be this year. Now it's currently August 22.
You've got a fair chance of getting there.
Yeah, well, look, 6 or 8 weeks ago, I would have said maybe 50-50. But, the way things have turned a bit with vaccinations and that, we're sort of reasonably hopeful now, to the point where, we've been in touch with the travel agent and looked at rolling our tickets over and picking some dates, and the outfitter's got dates for us. So we're going back to hunt Cape Buffalo, and should be good.
We're
about 3-4 years in the making.
We get a bit more confident with the old travel bookings. We've got a tar and a red sorted for New Zealand and dates under control. So we think we're there. I would never have dared to book last year or this year, but we think we're okay. So we've missed out on Stewart Island twice, unfortunately, the last couple of years. But we'll get there. But anyway, that's amazing. I mean, you hear so many stories about Africa. Some people have got a bent to go to Canada and Alaska and places like that, and others seem to want to go over to Africa and hunt that.
Yep.
There seems to almost be two camps. Eventually, those that like to travel will get to both, I guess. But New Zealand is another safari park that's not far from home that you've obviously managed to get to. Seems to be an easy one for the Australian to get to, and probably an easier dream to conquer. It might be just as difficult to get to and plan and organise as going to Africa in some respects, but it's nice and close, and it doesn't seem as daunting. Have you been over there many times?
3 or 4 trips to New Zealand now, I think. And look, you're 100% right. you know, my first international hunt was New Zealand. I think most Aussies would be the same. It's very achievable. You know, you can do it on quite a reasonable budget. You know, when you can get an airfare return for $500-600, you know, and it's, you know, if you want to, you can go over there and hunt public dock land, and you know, even if you chop her in, you know, with 2 or 3 guys, you know, you can realistically do a hunt over there, you know, sort of $1,500 around the mark. You know, it's not a big budget thing. And you know, if you hunt as much for the adventure than for the trophy, well, you know, it's the place to be. It's so hunter friendly. You know, you can. I remember my first hunt over there. You know, we're walking down the street of this town. We've been in the hills for 4 days, and we're walking down the main street in camouflage with this Kiwi fella, and I'm sort of, you know, hiding at the back a bit, and everyone's just asking, "Oh, how'd you go, boys? What'd you shoot?" You know,
Yeah, no one cares. Yeah.
No, they just love it. You know, even in the airport, you know, yelling out to us.
We were in a tourist town on our last trip, and I say tourist town, we flew into Christchurch, and we drove up to Hanmer Springs, which is a bit of a touristy, you know, ski resorty looking town. You know, nice cobbled, covered, you know, benches and stone walls and things like that. And yeah, the day before we hopped, or the day we were hopping on the chopper, the first stop was the local bakery in Hanmer, and yeah, there were 7 of us sitting along this wall in the middle of town having coffees and venison pies, I think it was, in the main street, and there were, you know, tourists walking past in their, you know, their Prada handbags and bits, but no one cares. It's not even. And I used to say, you know, the average cowcocky over there, you know, doesn't mind going hunting. If he's got to buy a jacket for work, it's going to be multi-purpose. He's going to be taking it hunting as well. So half of them are going to be camo. It's got nothing to do with the fact that they're off hunting today. It's just that, you know, multi-purpose. It makes sense. And the culture's fantastic because of it. So yeah, it's really cool. I love it.
No, they've got a fantastic culture over there of hunting, and not only that, but eating what they hunt as well. You know, they're really big into, you know, I go there and, you know, we end up eating wild pork and eating.
Don't mind their pork.
No, that's right. They love their pig hunting, and doesn't matter what it is, they'll eat it, you know. And in a lot of respects, as an Aussie, I think you go over there and you feel like a bit of a pretender, because they're such hardcore hunters. You know, they will go and sleep in a rock bivvy, which is just a hole under a rock. You know, like, well, us Aussies are a bit soft, I think.
Even the carryouts that you see them doing. You know,
you
think, oh, yeah, I'll have a crack at that. Geez, this fellow's heavy.
Yeah. No, and it's crazy, especially as, you know, you get up some of those alpine species. You know, that country's just crazy. You know, it's a pretty serious undertaking. Especially, you know, for a guy like me, I'm no mountain goat. I'm unfit and overweight, and you know, it's every bloody step's hard work, and you can never be fit enough for those hunts. And yeah, it's serious country, but just to be in that country is the prize in itself. You sit on a ridge top just looking around, and it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, agreed.
So what have you hunted over there, mate?
So my first couple of trips were tahr. My first trip was just a public land tahr hunt with a Kiwi fella, and we just stayed in a dock hut and just did it how the Kiwis do it pretty much. 4-wheel drive into a hut and climbed a bloody long way. It was August and it was knee deep snow, and like looking back now, you know, it was the wrong time to go and all this sort of stuff, but it was the time I had, and as it was, we got 4 stunning, you know, blue sky days, and it was magnificent. And yeah, I shot my first tahr up in there, which was only a young bull. And then 2 or 3 days after that, I shot another more mature bull, which unfortunately hung up on a bluff, and we couldn't recover. So that was a bit of pill. And then the second tahr hunt I went back and did, we actually chop it into the west coast, which is that's some serious country up in there. It's wild country. And
where'd you go out of bottom of the south, just above Fiordland?
Yeah, out of Franz Joseph Glacier.
Out of France, okay.
And that hunt there, we had one day of good weather and then got snowed in. So me and a mate ended up a couple of days just tent bound, which was no fun at all. And at that point, I was done with New Zealand. Like, I was just physically and mentally just done. I was, after 2 days in the tent, I'm saying to my mate, "That's it, mate. I'm not coming back. I'm done." And he's a fair bit younger than me, so he'll go back and do it again. But at that point, I was done. And anyway, it didn't take long. Only a couple of years later, I went back and finally got my good trophy bull tail, So I'm glad I did, because, I would have given up. But and then, this year was my 4th trip, was dedicated to chamois. So I went over and hunted with Mike Beeman and his wife Maddie at Real Kiwi Hunting. I'd sort of met Maddie's a local over here in Australia, and met Mike. He travels over to Australia his off season doing a bit of shearing, so sort of met him over here and teed up a hunt. And he actually, it's kind of funny how it came about. He walked into my trophy room and sort of looked around the walls. He said, "Oh, you haven't got a chamois?" And I said, No, I haven't. He goes, "Oh, you better come over." And anyway, I didn't think too much more of it. And then when the travel bubble opened up this year, I get this message from Mike, and of course, they've been quiet. They've got no American clients or anything, and he messaged me and says, "Well, you better come over. The travel bubble's open and SA can come." And so I organised this trip with, like, I don't know, 2 weeks' notice or something. Organised this trip and away we went. And so I had no time to do any training. I was way out of shape, even more than normal. And I knew it was going to be hard work. And then so we flew into Queenstown, and there was me and a fella from Tasmania hunting together. And anyway, we were the last 2 left at the baggage carousel because Qantas had lost all our bags. So we got, in our bags is our sleeping bags, our sleeping mats, our hiker boots, all our camo gear, thermals, you name it. So we're there wearing a pair of jeans and sneakers. And anyway, to Mike's credit, he picked us up and he managed to, we run around town borrowing sleeping bags and borrowing mats. And we went into hunting and fishing New Zealand and bought a brand new pair of boots and a cheap fleecy camo pack, and away we went.
What a great store that is, though.
Oh, mate, it's just the Kmart of hunting, isn't it? How good is it?
It's unreal. Yeah, and everywhere you go in New Zealand, each one of them is slightly different based on its local hunting opportunities or local fishing opportunities. If it's trout fishing country, that's what you'll get, and if it's ocean fishing, it's such a good chain.
Oh, it is, yeah. No, I've been to 3 or 4 of them now, but the pretty new one down there in Queenstown that's out near the airport conveniently. And so we went in there and, I don't know, dropped $400 or $500 each pretty quick. And so hunting chamois in brand new boots is definitely not something I recommend. And more, as you can imagine. But so my first day was an absolute nightmare. Not only I got brand new boots, but we climbed bloody miles up to the top of this peak, and then I proceeded to miss a few shots at the first nice buck we'd seen, and at fairly long range with a burrowed rifle. So that brought me back down to earth big time. And then luckily the next day our luggage arrived, so I was back in my own boots and back in a little bit of familiarity, and actually managed to get a bit of sleep because I was in my own sleeping bag and all that sort of stuff. And but went out the next day and shot a beautiful buck chamois at, I think, 378 metres, which is, I'm no long range shooter. So Mike was doing the dialing and, I was just pulling the trigger, but it wasn't quite that easy. But and then shot a nice nanny as well to cap it off. So I managed to get the pair, which was, just better than I could have hoped for, especially given the short lead time and absolutely no preparation or anything. So
Did you put any on the grill? Did you eat any of the chamois?
Oh, sorry. A bit of a funny story. We took all the backstakes out of everything. So the 2 I've shot up on the mound, I've caped them out and packed them all in the pack and put all the backstakes and everything in. And then the assistant guide who lives just out of Queenstown, we've gone back to his place for the night and proceeded to leave all the meat there. And then we ended up ducking back up north to Fairley for our last sort of day and night of the hunt, back to Mike's place, and just clean forgot about all the meat. So this assistant guide, he was grinning because he ended up with bloody esky full of chamois backsteaks and everything. But it looked pretty bloody good. But
You haven't tried chamois yet?
No, unfortunately. So I was sort of a bit disappointed because we carried it all out and then never got to try it. Anyway, next time maybe.
And did you say you borrowed a rifle while you were over there?
That trip I did. Now I normally always take my own rifle everywhere. That's the only trip ever that I've borrowed a rifle, and it was only because I did it with such short notice and because of COVID and borders were changing on the daily, as you know, and pretty much up until I was on the plane, I wasn't confident that I was actually going. So I didn't want the added hassle of having a firearm and doing all my permits and all that just to have it cancelled. So it was easier just to say, no, look, this one, Mike, I'll just borrow yours. And, just to save the hassle, basically. But normally, I've taken my own rifles to Africa and New Zealand and that before, and it's a bit of paperwork.
You got to be in touch and go anyway with the new rules around, getting the visitor firearms license and things like that. You got a mandatory. I thought it was 3 weeks prior to flying in that you had to get your license paid for, and the same with your rifles. Australia wants you to have those permits done minimum timeframes before. You can push the limits, but it would have just had so much hassle. But how'd you get around the New Zealand piece? Because were you just in the right time frame to be able to get your New Zealand firearms permit?
Did
you forget to do that, did you, Tim, and just walk out of the airport?
No, literally, I think literally as soon as I booked the trip, because it's all online now. Actually, they've streamlined that. It's easier than it used to be, that New Zealand.
But they added the timeline, which was a
drama. It was pretty good. So it just did it all online, and never really had any hassles at all going to New Zealand. They're so friendly, and even the police over it. I generally end up landing in Christchurch, and they remember your face. You come back a week later and they ask you, what'd you shoot and all this stuff.
I'll tell you how relaxed they are. I was on my way back from my my most recent New Zealand hunt, and we had a crew with us from our ADA branch, and we've checked everything in, and we're on our way up to get a coffee and through the gates, and I get this call. Mr. Ian Hurley, could you please come back to customs? I said, okay, something going on here.
Yeah, you always love getting that call.
Oh, well, get back in there. Hey, just come around here, sir. I'll have a look at it. Does that look like a round in your rifle? Geez, I hope not. Look a bit close. I don't know how they could have picked it out because I couldn't see a round in the rifle. But anyway, turns out there's a round in the bottom of the box bag. Still in the rifle that went through customs. Now, there's a backstory to that as to why that might have been. Something to do with a friend of mine using my rifle, but I didn't check it as it went through. And I knew I was missing a round. I figured I dropped it in the bush somewhere.
Yeah.
I didn't, for whatever reason, didn't check it. But anyway, I thought, man, I'm in trouble. And he's had a look at it. He goes, oh, he's picked up the round, and he said, what do you want to do with this? I said, well, do you have to fill out some paperwork? Do I need to call someone to come and take it out? I said, do you want to dispose of it? He goes, oh, yeah, I'll just chuck it in the bin. Oh, are you sure? Yeah, no, don't worry about it, bro. It's all good. And off it went. You imagine if he hadn't picked that up when I got into customs in Australia, other than the fact that they are so scared of you having a rifle as you come through customs in Australia that all they want to do is get you the hell out of their airport. They're unlikely to spot it anyway. But if you got picked up with a round in your rifle going through the airport, you wouldn't be making your flight.
Yeah.
You'd be having a fair questioning. Anyway, that got me the club blooper award, I can tell you.
No, we did have that on that tar hunt we did on the West Coast. We got snowed in, actually. We were flying out of Melbourne, and my mate here, my good mate Meeky, I'll drop him in it. He got to the airport, checked everything in, and we're going through the baggage scan, and we always take our hunting packs as carry-on. scanned it through, and then they've grabbed his bag. Whose bag is this? And he sort of put the hand up, looking a bit ginger, and anyway, they started rifling through it, and he sort of said, "Oh, you know, what are you looking for? Stand back, you know, just."
Was this on the Australian side?
Yeah, in Melbourne. And he's like, "Well, if you tell me what you're looking for, you know, I might be able to help you. Just stand back, you know." And anyway, this dude's rifled all through his case and pulled a 308 round out the bottom of his day pack. It had fallen down, you know, the separate section where the water bladder goes. It had fallen down in there. He wasn't even using his 308 on this hunt, so I don't know, like it'd been in there for, you know, from a previous hunt. Anyway, so Miggy says, "Oh, look, sorry, mate, I didn't know it was in there. You know, you just dispose of it, do whatever you have to do, you know." "Oh, no, we need to call the federal police." So anyway, old mate security calls the federal police. So we're standing there for 45 minutes waiting for the feds to turn up. Federal police had to turn up to all this paperwork, give him a formal warning about this round and all this sort of stuff. By this stage, like our plane was, they're calling us over the PA, and long story short, we ran through customs, ended up running onto the plane as, you know, as everyone's seated and giving us the evil eye and that sort of stuff, and very nearly missed the flight. But yeah, just complete opposite end of the spectrum. Yeah.
It'll be right, bro. Don't worry about us.
Yeah. In the bin. I was surprised he didn't take that one home or use that one.
He was more worried when he said to me, "Have you got the keys for your gun case?" I said, "No, they're in my other bag that's already gone. Can you get that back?" "Oh, that's too hard." "Oh no, what are we going to do?" I said, "Mate, just break the locks." "Oh, you sure?" "No, mate, it's all right. Just break." "Oh, you sure?" Yeah, just break the locks. It's fine. I'll just call one of the guys. They'll go up and get me a couple of $100 pair of shitty padlocks from the bookshop, you know, and we'll put them on when we're done. It'll be all right." "Oh, okay, no worries." Off he goes. It was so calm. But man, I was packing myself, as you would. I'd be, yeah. And your mate that just ran onto the plane must have had some serious heart palpitations going on about that time.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah, when the federal police turned up, and look, they were pretty good about it, but.
Yeah, but you've got to wonder, you know, when you go through the customs process when you leave, and you've got to go down into that area. I don't know what it's like in when you're flying out of Melbourne, but in Brisbane, you go down to the bottom level, and you've got to go in an extra hour and a half before your mandatory 2 hours. So it's almost 4 hours early, and you get there and you get called. In like, there's usually a crew of us going. It's like, well, we're not going to take you all through one at a time, and you go into a room and it's locked from the inside. Not even the person in there with you can get out. They've got to like hit a code or do something, and someone opens the door, and they pull the rifle out. It's just the rifle, the bolts and ammo and everything, they're all separate. "Is the bolt out, sir?" Yeah, it's out. Like, they're just not used to it.
That's
it's a very bizarre process.
Yeah, and you never see the same thing twice, because most of them don't know what they're doing. You've got to tell them what to do, and you know, I've seen just about everything. I've seen, you know, girls on check-in that want you to take your ammo out of your suitcase so they can put it on the scales and weigh it. And it's like, you're not licensed to even touch my ammo, you know, like.
Yeah. Well, the worst thing that we had, well, not the worst thing, but the most ridiculous thing that we had was on the paperwork where you go out and you're writing down 1 times, you know, Tika T3X rifle with, you know, whatever scope, X, you know, the full description, plus 1 box, you know, 7mm rim mag, ammunition, 150 gram, you know, the full description of what it is. 1 box, 20 rounds, whatever. So that's what we did the first time we went over. We never do that now. We buy rounds in New Zealand because we're just buying factory rounds. Right. But on the way back, because we'd shot 1 round, we no longer had 1 box, 20 rounds coming back again. It didn't match the outgoing paperwork, so they confiscated the 19 rounds. This is no longer a box of 20 rounds, sir.
So the first time I did it, I'd take a case guard of 50 over.
What's that?
I always take a case guard of 50 wherever I go generally. And the first time I did it, the girl that helped me do the permit, she just said, put on 50 live rounds and 50 empty cases, because they use a different customs code for empty cases. They do live cases,
Right.
but she just puts both down on that form. So you've got, that might not be. That was 15 years ago. That might still not be, might not work. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's why, you know, even when the crew goes over, even if they're a group of guys that do their own loads, we highly recommend that they find a factory load that's good enough for what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because I won't say most factory loads are good enough for what we're doing. If you're doing some of that high country hunting up in the Alps and you're doing cross gully shooting, could be 400 or 500 meters. We need to do some range time with, you know, Barnes rounds or Hornaday rounds or whatever to make sure that you've got one. And then we put an order in at Hunting and Fishing before we leave and go and pick them up. To that point, those that regularly come with us, we're all shooting 7mm Rim Mags because it's now one box of them. It just makes the whole job easier. But
it was
it's an interesting experience.
It's about $100 a box over there now.
Oh, it's about that here.
Oh, right. I've bought factory loads here in about, forever.
You know, they're not cheap.
Yeah, wow.
They're not cheap, but I'm not out there brassing up the neighbourhood with them.
Exactly.
The foxes aren't getting chased around by them. You know, one box could last me 2 or 3 years. So you know, once it's sighted, then you run a sighter from time to time, and it's fine. It's Anyway, New Zealand's great. Mark, you haven't been there yet, have you?
Look, I have actually. That was one of the first places, but I haven't hunted any alpine country. I had the opportunity to hunt a bit of farmland, but most of my overseas hunting's been in England, and I borrow everything when I go there. I borrow the whole lot, so I don't take anything other than actually, no, I don't even take clothing. I over the years, we stayed with relatives. My hunting gear stays there. You know, it all stays there. So I just literally get on the plane with, you know, what I want to, jeans and boots, and get over there, and it's sitting there in the cupboard. So as long as I don't, you know, eat too much between trips, I'm pretty much right.
That's good.
And I'm a lefty too, so I've always borrowed gear. So I've had a real mix and match. I got invited on a true driven pheasant hunt. There's actually one of the guys we're going to have on in a couple of weeks was the guy who organised it. It was for a film shoot, and at the time he was doing the media work for one of the big shotgun companies over there, and so I borrowed this something like a €25,000 shotgun for the day, and it was a right-handed, and it beat the hell out of me all day. But I was happy to shoot the thing. It smashed the hell out of me, Pete. You know, it
was a high-class bruise, though. Yeah.
That's right. That's it. You know, it beat me up, but it was high class end, that's for sure. And we were shooting high pheasant, so I wasn't hitting anything anyway. So I was just throwing lead up, and having a great old time. And went on a deer hunt, a couple of deer hunts, just borrowed rifles, couple of other wing shoots. You know, one of the best ones was what they call a rough shoot, which is basically you just walk around a farm. And we were using autoloaders that day and using Remington autoloaders. That was great fun. I kept everything I shot, got 3 shots in it though. It's been so long since I used an autoloader, I got it, you know, boom, boom, boom. Okay, we got it. And another we did another shoot, which was was really a cross between, which probably was the most enjoyable, was a driven hunt but on a farm, and it was run by, well, the farmer was there, but it was run by a syndicate who ran on that farm. So you went from paddock to paddock to paddock, and you went back, and you know you had tea and cake in the tractor shed. And I actually was part of the yielded shotgun range. We were doing a review on them.
Yep.
So I got given I got a lefty that day. That was really nice. So that was a lovely shotgun to borrow, and I shot that all day. And when I was shooting the deer, mostly we were shooting with colours. So we would go out with the cull crew, and we just use their gear, and they shoot completely differently. They shoot off sticks, they shoot with suppressors, They don't have anything less than a 50 mil front objective on their scope. You know, that's where it starts. And mostly, quarter cals and or the 260s and stuff like around that. So it was a very different. And when I shot the muntjac, I was using a borrowed 270 with the suppressor, and I also did a review for a Remington while I was over there, which was suppressed. It was a very nice rifle too. So I've always just borrowed gear.
Yeah. Well, especially I think for England, they're pretty strict on it, aren't they? So
yeah, it's just so much easier,
yeah. Yeah. So what area were you hunting deer there?
So I've hunted a fair chunk of England. I was thinking about it not so long ago. So I've hunted deer up in York, around in Yorkshire, outside of York, and I've hunted deer in the Midlands around a place called Peterborough. So I've hunted in 2 different locations. Around York was fallow deer, and the deer around Peterborough was specifically after muntjac, and I've also hunted fallow down the south as well, kind of just below London, but a little over to the east. That was a fallow block as well. But the place where we hunted the muntjac, across the road was a red deer farm, a proper farm, where they were breeding them just like livestock. And over the next valley was one of the best seeker herds in the country, and they were semi-free range, because everything over there is kind of fenced, because it's just what you're dealing with. But it was classed as a free range. But the day I shot 2 muntjac on my trip, and the first one I shot was just after dawn. The doe came out, and the buck followed across, and I shot the buck in the open, nearly stuffed it all up, shooting off sticks. So I had this 270 on these sticks, and they're not like a tripod, they're actually a 4-point stick. They've got that, so they're like, they cantilever out.
Yep.
Really awkward thing, because the guy was, it was quite low, so I had to kind of get right down to get into it. And they shoot with round in on, safety on.
Yep.
So the first thing I do is
ejected the round.
I go, it's time to shoot, crank it. Out goes the Barnes, and they go, what are you doing? I'm going, bang, and hit this little munty, and he goes down. And as we walk out to him, it's, the light's just coming on, so you can't see too much, but we had a good clear view of him. As the light comes up, down this this row between 2 trees, down the bottom is this red that's escaped from the red farm, and he's basically like got 2 tree trunks sticking out of his head. And I go, can I shoot that? And they said, no, you can't shoot that. Man, it was a beast of an animal. And and then later on the day, got another little munty, and I actually just gave one of the skulls to one of Helen's, my wife's family's over there, and one of the young nephews, he's interested. So, and the skulls are still sitting over there. So I gifted him one of them. So he's very excited, because they got the little fangs. They're a weird little creature with fangs. The fallow deer were shot on a what do they call it? Basically an estate, a historic estate that had been given a national trust, is the term. The national trust. So these guys were going on and basically thinning out deer numbers, and it'd been an estate where they'd had traditionally hunting. So there was in disrepair, but they had all the pheasant pens and the breeding pens in the tree line. They actually were in the tree line. But that was the first time I ever seen anyone use thermals. So they use thermal all the time. And so we were hunting around in there with these with the after fallow, and I shot a fallow, and like here, I shot a deer, and I went, oh, I got it. And he goes, what are you doing? And what do you mean? He goes, keep shooting them, keep shooting them.
Yeah, numbers going.
Oh, sorry. and then we because they sell them for meat, you know, you can actually there. We didn't actually pay to hunt. We were invited on, but generally you pay to hunt, and then you pay for the meat.
Yeah,
the meat. So we actually bought.
They do an accreditation where they can sell it, don't they?
Yeah. So it goes to it's kind of like going to the chiller here, kind of. Bit a couple of levels up in terms of processing, but it's the idea it goes to a wholesaler who then can sell it on.
Yep.
So there's a lot of then of course with that being that there's a lot of requirements for them to be able to track that meat. So it's not like, you know, you can't do it much anymore, I'm assuming, but I can remember a younger guy turning up to the chillers with a bunch of pigs and they just giving us money for them type thing.
Yeah, right. Yep. No, it's definitely something on my horizon. I've got family in Oxford. So my dad's from down there. He moved over here when he was 16 or something like that. So still, been over there a couple of times, but never sort of hunting. And I've got family down there that are involved, and cousins and uncles and aunties and that sort of stuff. So, and then I've got a mate in London as well who hunts and's got private leases and that sort of stuff, and he's sort of got invites. I've just got to get over there. But once again, it's just the time. But I'd love to, to go and hunt a roebuck and a mudjack, and that'd be pretty cool, I reckon.
We usually go at Christmas time, so I'm never there for a month. Roe deer. They're always on season when we go, but everything else is on season. So I've seen glimpses of Chinese water deer. Never seen one with a rifle on my hand, but I've seen glimpses of Chinese water deer. Seen plenty of fallow, seen plenty of red. Haven't seen any sika, and of course muntjac. The deer, but it's very different there. It's compressed. It's in a way it's almost the complete opposite to hound hunting.
Yeah.
It's all about that hunt. You go out, you hunt, and then you come back type thing. There isn't that kind of that network around it. So often, like if you go out with a guide there, you'll go out like 2 to 3 hours in the morning and 2 to 3 hours in the afternoon, and that's it.
Yeah.
And they'll actually kind of say, it's 75 pounds for the morning and 75 pounds for the evening, and then the trophy fees, and they tend to measure things in bronze, silver, gold class trophies.
Yep.
It's very segmented, very regulated, as opposed to kind of what we do, which is at times just no regulation at all, really.
Yeah, a bit open slather, yeah. But no, one day, mate. One day for sure.
Yeah, look, I enjoy the deer hunting in England, and I certainly enjoyed getting the muntjac. But for me, it was the wing shooting. The various types of wing shooting. That was always the most enjoyable, and I kind of missed that because we would be there now. We would be there now, or we'd be getting ready to go.
Yeah,
right. We used to go in early December, so we would be getting ready to go now. So we'd be tickets would be booked, the whole lot. We'd be ready to go. So where to next for you? I mean, do you have the interest in the North America and all that stuff, or is that not your cup of tea?
No, I definitely do. My grand master plan was always going to be to go in 2020 and some bug here. 2020 and hunt moose and elk. That's sort of my next big bucket list thing is moose and elk. I was going to do that in 2020, but then I got my arm twisted instead to go back to Africa and do Cape Buffalo. So it wasn't a bad sort of substitute, but as it turns out, we ended up doing neither. So, so hopefully once we get to this, I think this next Africa trip, like, it's definitely not going to be the last one, but it'll be the last one for a while, I would say. I've got a fair few species over there now, and most of the ones I sort of really want. There's always more, but that'll be my next big focus. Will be at this stage I'm sort of looking at British Columbia. The moose and elk season only just overlap. I think you've got about a 5-day window where they overlap, so you sort of got to hunt one then the other. But yeah, it can be done, but it's a bit of a tight window, and obviously not a cheap hunt. I think it'd be a sort of hunt of a lifetime type thing for me. But yeah, and then obviously I'd love to get down, south in the USA as well and hunt, whitetail, mule deer, definitely, pronghorn antelope, all that sort of stuff really appeals. So yeah, I think that'll be the next big thing. Once we tick off a couple more species in Africa, go and get this cut off, go and finish some unfinished business there, and then that'll be the next big focus, I think.
And you tend to you're not chasing predators at all. I haven't heard you once talk about bears, wolves, big cats, any of those sorts of things. It's not your cup of tea.
No, that's a good pickup actually, because I've got no interest in. I don't know why. I think I'm just an antlers and horns sort of guy. But
I get it. I was 100% the same.
I get it
100% the same. But I was listening to a thing the other day, and they were saying, yeah, you can go and get your elk tag and your moose tag, and for an extra $10, you can have a wolf and a black bear. Yeah. So that tells me that they're in problem numbers, and I would never have considered it before. But it made me start to think about it. And not that I've ever been. I actually have never really been interested in hunting Africa. I don't know why. Just I've always been focused on going to Alaska or Canada or somewhere like that. Yeah. And I'll probably get the bug later on. But leopards have always fascinated me. How cunning they are, and how vindictive they are, and how nasty they can be, and just adding that extra layer of, I don't know, something to being the prey and the hunter at the same time.
For sure.
It's an interesting thing. But yeah, no, you certainly didn't have any mention of predators, so I thought that was a bit of an interesting thing.
No, and look, I'm the sort of guy that I'll never say never. Like at this stage, to go and hunt a bear or cats or whatever just doesn't interest me. But like I said, never say never, because a lot of more experienced guys than me have told me, it's not until you go and, you go for an elk hunt, for example, and you're hunting amongst the grizzly bears, that sort of stuff. And they'll say it's not until you're there hunting in their country and you see them that you start to understand why people want to hunt them. So it's sort of, for me, like I said, you never say never, but, you pick up these experiences along the way. And
it's not your draw card. Yeah.
No, but, so I can remember, I know guys that all they want to do is go to Africa and shoot baboons, and I can remember sitting on a hillside and this troop of baboons come over, and there's this big male in there, and we were stalking waterbuck at the time, and the guide sort of, shoot that baboon, shoot. Passed up, and for about the next half hour, he wouldn't talk to me. He's just sitting there like this. And I had no interest. And then, it wasn't until later on we had some baboons completely ruin a stalk on a kudu that we'd put a fair bit of time and effort into. And I went away and I thought, yeah, now I understand,
give me the shotgun.
They're a pain in the ass, but there's guys, that's all they want to do is go and shoot them. But, we're all different and whatever. But no, for me, it's the stuff with antlers and stuff with horns.
Yeah. I've always been more drawn to that idea of Alaska and that. I just think because, I'm always hot, so I don't want to go hunting where it's hot.
Yeah, but no.
If I want to go to hot, I can go anywhere.
Hang on, mate. You go and hunt the pilliga in summer, Mark.
That's right. Well, that's what I mean. If I want hot, I just go down the road. I don't need to go to Africa. I got hot all around me, so I don't need to do that. But that idea of going to that wholly different climate and all that stuff is what really appeals to me. I mean, when you see those guys like those, when they do those the float. They basically raft down a river for weeks on end, and they just hunt off the raft and float off. That looks like something. That's out of worldly. All for a start, the fact there's all that water. There's just abundance of water, and that's what really blew me away about the first time I went to New Zealand.
Mm.
You know, the abundance of water. You know, I remember we were heading to Rotorua, and we stopped along somewhere, and there was just this glacial, you know, water just spewing out. And I just went, you know,
Hooker Falls.
that's it. I said, look at that. You know, that you require a monsoon for the dam to look like that, and here it is, just, you know, normal shooting out like that.
All day, every day.
That whole concept, you know, going somewhere it's colder and there's water and it's just different green and all that stuff really appeals to me.
Yeah, look, I think the more I get around it, the more I realise that for me, yeah, hunting is as much as like seeing these different places and, you know, travelling to different places. And it's about the people too. Like, you know, I'll do a solo hunt, but I pretty quickly work out I don't like my own company. So, you know, I can last a night or two maybe. But by the second night, I'm sort of sitting there thinking, oh, you're not real good company, Tim. Like, come on. And so for me, it's all about my mates. You know, it's all about, you know, and I can be in camp with my mates, and even if I don't even get my gun out of the case, if one of them shoots something, you know, I'm just as excited as if I've shot something. You know, and traveling with your mates and that sort of stuff. To me, that's what it's really all about for me. You know, I get more out of that than shooting a big trophy. That's for sure. You know, that's
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I regard England's hunting as so good, because, you know, the hunting itself is it's good, but it's not like, you know, it's not like that world class. But the fact that, you know, if you've ever been to a true driven hunt, you know, and even I felt a bit uncomfortable because there's you know, there's pickers, there's people who basically pick up the birds after you shoot them, and there's all etiquette and all. I mean, I had to borrow clothes to go on this hunt, and I weren't borrowing cam, I was borrowing tweeds, you know, and old socks and a flat hat and all that stuff, and which that's why it stays there. I mean, there's nowhere else in the world I can work. So, but the fact that, you know, you're part of this, and like, you know, the way the breakfast happens before and the dinner after, all that stuff, that was just, it was a lived experience rather than just something that, you know, that just happened. And that was really quite, like, the amount of grog that you drink on a day's driven hunt. After every shoot, that it's hot toddy time, you know, and the wagon pulls up and so off you go, you know. That's through the day, and you just kind of, you know, and then you get to the end where they have the big banquet table type thing. So it was really quite amazing. So just being part of that, and then the other version was when we're on the farm, and, you know, and everyone comes back to the tractor shed for 10 o'clock tea and cakes, you know, and the little tin cake come out, you know, and they're having cakes, and there's a little boiled tea there, and just being part of that is really, you know, that's that wonderful thing. I think that hunting's brought so many people together, but the fact that you meet all these different people from all walks of life, but you're all doing the same thing.
Oh, for sure, and that's where social media is so good now, that, you know, you do the same. You have all these Facebook friends and whatever, or, you know, I've got these messenger groups with mates from all around the world that we've been on hunts with, and you know, you just be on there staring each other up, you know, talking garbage, and you know, and it just adds to the fun of the hunt. You know, you're planning your next hunt, and
how many of those groups have you met, and you've been on that amazing hunt, on that amazing trip, and you've all said, we should do this every year? There's got to be a heap of them. There's got to be a heap of them, but you never get to it. Hey, we've ticked over 2 hours, so I reckon we'll probably call it. Mark asked the last question that I had on my list, which was, other than your next African trip coming up, what's on the bucket list? So you covered that off pretty well. I'll be interested to see how you go chasing black bear and wolves for your extra $10 ticket. I'll keep an eye on my latest Facebook liked page and Insta account to see how you go with that. Once you get there, you got a bit of time between now and then, I guess. But no, it's been awesome, man. It's been a great conversation. SA to Africa to New Zealand and Northern Territory, and man, you've done some stuff. So a lot of memories packed into there, and it's great to share them with the community of people that are listening into this podcast. So thanks very much.
Nah, cheers, guys. Thanks for having me on, and yeah, all the best and good hunting to you guys, and good hunting to all the guys out there as well. You know, stay safe, have fun.
Yep, and Ian said it best, mate. Thanks for you coming on and sharing your stories with us. It has been really enlightening, and it's great to hear that how much you've packed into it and how you jump at the opportunities. I think for a lot of people, they're worried about how to start or what to do, and I'm just do it type thing is it's often said, but you're pretty much a living example of let's do it.
Yeah, and look, 100%, mate. I think we all know that guy who had a heart attack and died at 45 and left behind a young family and that sort of stuff. We all know someone like that. You never know. So if you get an opportunity, go and do it. Don't matter how small an opportunity is. If it's if you can do it without bankrupting yourself or divorcing yourself, go and do it. So
Get it done.
Grab it with both hands.
Mate, again, thanks very much for your time. It was really great.
Anytime, guys. Happy to talk hunting.
Righto. Cheers, Tim.